I ain't know a lot about you this week.
I thought we weren't allowed to do the joke.
Oh.
You were the one that said we can't make those jokes.
When it's me,
now all of a sudden Demaris can make the jokes that she said don't make.
Cut out. When it's me, leave it in there. We all go down.
I ain't going down with shit.
You going down now. They canceling your ass too. Your Twitter's deleted. Your TikTok.
When Rory's around.
And I want anybody else listening to this, we don't think that's funny. We laugh to hide our pain.
Rory and Demaris and Mal have an awkward exchange after the cancellation of Rory. So yes, on a recent episode of the Rory and Mal podcast, we saw for the first time them address it head on in a way that came after the initial apology.
I don't think my intentions came off the correct way. I sounded very, very dismissive in the beginning.
Now, we all know Rory would apologize, but that was before all those other tweets came out. And boy, was the tears behind the laughs really on full display. So eventually, through this conversation, Demaris would say a joke about how she learned a lot about Rory this week. Obviously, a reference to the tweets that would come out about Rory and his past. And he would address these on Spaces, in one of the craziest Spaces that ever happened. And it was probably a masterclass in everything not to do. And here are some of the clips just to relive the moment.
Y'all like to do like that.
Do it
You
or
make this
don't.
white motherfucker get his up here and explain why he thought it was okay.
I'm so angry though.
Do it or
Now
don't.
speak your motherfucking mind.
Do it or don't. Do it or don't.
Because I promise your motherfucking
Do it or
ass
don't.
ain't nobody
Do it or
can
don't.
save you, white boy.
So after that, Rory would have some other tweets resurface. The whole industry would speak about it. There would be a bunch of think pieces about Rory's place in the culture. Now, later on, there would also be a conversation about what Demaris did and how she carried herself, because she would go on stage and hold Rory down.
Rory, yeah, but you not gonna accuse me of motherfucking lying about nothing. You're not gonna accuse me of lying about you weird. I don't gotta lie about getting doxxed.
Rory, not me, girl.
I forget it's in this mother face. And you gotta go to sleep every night knowing that. Out my face.
So would other folks like Gina Views. I mean, that whole space, Rory was begging for his industry friends to come up and defend him, and they did, and now they are facing the repercussions of their actions. But on this episode, you saw a lot of angst, animosity about how things went down, with Rory even saying, "Hey, Demaris, I thought you said we wouldn't joke." And, you know, Rory has an interesting way of being. The way he navigates his insecurities is by acting like he's not bothered, but he's really bothered. So I know when I've exchanged jokey battles or witty exchanges with Rory on Spaces, I'll land a shot or a joke, and then he gets all defensive and upset, but then pretends like he's not defensive and upset and says, "Oh, I don't care, I'm just joking." This is a tactic he uses and a defense mechanism, which did him really bad when he tried to explain his tweets in a space full of Kendrick Lamar stans. But what Demaris said was even more interesting. She said she's not going down. Now, everybody always tries to talk about things like, oh, these podcasters are joking. Nah, the subconscious mind exposes itself at all times in every given moment of any type of dialogue. And I think Demaris truly feels like she shouldn't go down for the tweets of Rory, and given her rhetoric in the past about kind of how she views herself as a black woman, I think she's deeply hurt about how she looked going up there, going to war for Rory. You also have to remember that not only did Rory ask for Demaris's defense, he also undercut her defense by shutting her up. I know he didn't necessarily shut her up, but just not letting her do her thing. He didn't even take her advice when she was saying, all right, dude, stop taking this as some sort of joke. You're making this worse. So not only did Rory ask for her defense, when he got it, he didn't treat it with the care he should have. So Demaris is completely right and feels like she shouldn't go down, because she shouldn't go down with the ship. I mean, she was holding Rory down, and then Rory in turn didn't hold her down. So this is all on Rory. Now, Mal would make allusions to the jokes and whatnot, saying we all go down, Peach goes down, everybody gonna go down. And I mean, I think Mal is saddened by this, but in a Mal way. I don't know if he's sad, but he probably just thinks what Rory did was dumb by compounding the mistake. And he probably feels like if it wasn't for Spaces, all of this would have been easily mitigated. And you have to remember, Maul and Demaris always told Rory, stay away from Spaces, and he did not heed that advice. So could this have been avoided if Rory had stood off Spaces? Absolutely. But those Kendrick Lamar fans were going to come for him, and those tweets were going to obviously get pulled to the carpet. But the Spaces just made it something that was now audio. Now we can always look back at that time and be like, yo, what was Rory thinking? This is crazy. The hubris, the smugness. The hubris and the smugness would not have been as apparent if it wasn't for the audio version of that living forever. Also, Rory starts singing, and it just seems like a nervous joke. Here, you see it right now.
When Rory's around, Rory's around.
So as you can see, ever since this has happened, it just feels like this has rocked the show. Time will tell if their views drop. I know they've lost about 1,000 subscribers, which isn't really a lot. But since then, you can see them trying to move differently. Rory has deleted his account. He's completely disappeared from Spaces, and I don't think we'll be seeing him for quite some time. Someone told me that he said that he was drinking on Spaces, so that's why he acted that way. But I feel like it's more than that. Like, I almost think if Rory wasn't drunk on Spaces, he would still be this way. He's kind of, this is his thing. This is his bag. He's pretentious. He's smug. The same thing people accuse me of, but he just feels like the Spaces people and a lot of the podcasters feel like the Spaces people are beneath them. And it played out that way. Now, I know in my comment section and a lot of comment sections about Spaces, many folks are like, yo, these people are unemployed. These people are losers. But they are actual physical representations of people who listen to the show, but just in audio. They're essentially the timeline if it was able to speak, which I know is utterly disgusting, but also makes for great entertainment. So much so that a lot of people who frequent the Spaces think that the Spaces are more engaging than the actual podcast we listen to, like Rory and Maul and Joe Budden's show. But let me know what you think about this awkward on-air exchange. Essentially, what you're seeing is them reconciling with how their show will be viewed moving forward. It's like every year they have a crazy crash out. Remember, a few years ago, it was Eden punching Julian. Then the year after, it was Julian getting fired from the show. And this year, it's Rory getting canceled. So it's like these guys keep a trick up their sleeve, and sometimes they don't know how to control it. My only issue with, well, not this one, not the cancellation one, with the Julian getting punched and the Julian also getting fired is that they would address it on Spaces more so than the pod. And I feel like if you're going to lean into the mess, do it on the platforms in which you actually are monetized. And what I think is a solid theory is that Rory on Spaces is some of what he wants to be on the show. Like, he probably wanted to address Julian on his podcast, but Maul probably didn't want to do it. So he was like, all right, I'm going to go on Spaces where I can't be controlled and be allowed to be a little bit more creative, get in my Joe Budden COE bag. But it blew up in his face with the tweets because, you know, it is what it is. You can't really COE your way out of that one. But in this instance, the tact of only staying on the podcast would have been the smart move. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you feel like Demaris feels some type of way about the way this went down? I mean, ultimately, she's paid by Rory and Maul, so she can't really hold Rory accountable. So she did what she could. And not only is she paid by Rory and Maul, I believe Demaris was Rory's assistant prior, helping him to organize things when it came to his musical business and even possibly linking up with him since the days of Henny Palooza, which would become Duce Palooza. So she felt beholden to hold him down. But I think the craziest tragedy of that whole thing was that Rory couldn't even listen to Demaris's cries for him to just let her do her thing. And he spoke for her. He didn't let her defend him the way that she wanted to. With that said, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you still giving Rory and Maul a chance? Do you feel like this tweet thing wasn't a big deal? Do you feel like this tweet thing was a big deal and now you've completely cut them from your rotation? Rory and Mal have a loyal, albeit small audience, so I think they'll still survive. It'll just be the war of attrition. And at some point, I do believe that Rory and Mal will no longer be able to secure deals. And that is when the fun will begin. How long will Rory and Mal be able to pod without a Sirius, without a Volume, without a Studio 71, without any of these checks coming in to help prop them up and get them ads? That is when the games will begin, and I don't know if they will last. All right, y'all, this is Danny from The Stop. Peace.